How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, this time for June 21st through June 27th of 2021. My name is Cam White. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. Few announcements real quick before we actually begin. As you guys have seen, and I've gotten a lot of comments, I am not doing monthly horoscopes anymore. I know, it sucks. It's just, it is a lot of work to do monthly horoscopes, to write it all, then record it all, and then when I upload them, I got a lot of comments that people weren't even getting the notifications turned on because, when you dump four, videos all in a row, like just the algorithm doesn't like that. So it's just a lot of work for not a lot to get back. I do think I'm considering, and I kind of wanted to put this out there to see what maybe you guys thought. I was considering doing a version of a monthly horoscope again. Just on my Patreon. I used to do a monthly live on my Twitch where I'd, use people's charts as like the example. I was thinking about taking that to my Patreon because I'd actually be able to put much more time and effort and energy into it, and I'd, be there for the people that really actually want the monthly horoscopes. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, though. That's still a maybe. Let me know in the comments what you think as well. If you guys go to my website, and if you guys have booked with me, or at least if you've been to my website, you know that I offer 30-minute and 1 hour and a half sessions. And sometime in July, I'm not sure when, I'm going to actually take those out. I'm not changing my prices right now. Prices are still going to be the same. I'm just going to only offer hourly readings. I just don't have the time and the energy to do the 30-minute or the hour and a half readings. I am trying to open up my schedule more to be able to produce more content. So that's the reason behind that. However, if you want, if you want to snag the 30-minute reading, or if you want that extra half hour with me, this is the time to book the reading. So, as well, more delineation episodes are on the way, but like, holy fuck, this Mercury retrograde. I don't even want to say this Mercury retrograde. Mercury being in Gemini for a long time was cool, right? And then Mercury stationed retrograde on Venus, where it was like, huh? Like, I don't know, it was like this almost like value change, right? And then, it was like that Mercury Cazimi, that was definitely a lot harder than, I wouldn't want to say I anticipated, but it was on my Venus, so it took a little bit of a hard one for me, but yeah, this Mercury retrograde has just been like, I need to not talk. I have Mars conjoining my Mercury right as Saturn's opposite my Mercury, so maybe I should like not talk for a minute, but there's more episodes on the way. Anyway, with all that being said, yeah, let's go ahead and begin. I just also wanted to say thank you guys for being here. We have a lot to talk about. I saw a lot of you were actually really excited about last week, saying that, oh, there's not a lot going on this week. I'm stoked for it. Good. I hope that you got a lot out of last week. I kind of felt like last week was This week, though, we actually really, really do have a lot going on. And this, in my opinion, we're in a different version of 2021 now. We're in a completely different world. So let's go ahead and start into it. We start this week on Monday with, boom, the sun ingresses into Cancer. We have the summer solstice. I thought it was interesting. If you've seen me on like Kira's show, on the astrology show, talking about the sun. I know a lot of people have heard me talk about the sun entering Cancer and the sun being in domicile in Cancer. And something I literally just saw this on an Instagram meme the other day. I wish I would have thought to throw this up here, but it was talking about how sometime during when the sun's in Cancer, I think it's June 14th, or no, not June 14th. I forgot when it was, but it's like a day when the sun's in Cancer, when most of the Earth's population, both north and south of the equator, get the most amount of sunlight. So, a lot of people think astrology is kind of, not fully inclusive because it doesn't really, help. It's not done in the perspective of the southern hemisphere, but I always thought it was kind of interesting that I guess with this like sun being in Cancer, all this light, both in the northern southern hemisphere. I just thought that was kind of a cool fact. I wish I could have brought it up here to be specific about it. But anyway, I'm talking about this because in the northern hemisphere, summertime, sun's getting hotter, right? You have to remember too, we get our meaning and signification of the zodiac signs from the seasons. Sidereal astrologers will say otherwise, but this is, we're talking about Cancer season, right? there is a, I always like to think of it's literally like, go back to being a kid, summer starting, go back to even being, for thousands of years, what is it meant to be a human during summertime, when there was, plenty of food to eat, when it was warm and it was easy to survive. What can we, our beingness, right? The sun and our energy, it's literally our fuel source, right? It's what we surround ourselves, it's what, I don't want to say surround ourselves with. What is it called? Orbit around? I can't think of the right word. We literally surround our whole lives around it, and it gives us energy. It gives us everything. And I think the sun going into Cancer, the sun also eventually too going into Leo, we're gonna feel a little bit better. I truly think the sun, for the Aquariuses out there, maybe you guys will feel a little or maybe if Cancer rules your 8th house, you may not feel that good. But I do think Cancer season beginning, right? We're starting to get more comfortable. We're starting to feel more, at least people up here in the Northern Hemisphere. I know the Southern Hemisphere people will disagree, but Northern Hemisphere, things are becoming fun, light again. Not to say that that's everyone's experience, but the sun in Cancer is, a focus on, needs being met, a focus on being taken care of. The sun is literally lighting up Cancer, like literally. We got to move on from the sun in Cancer. Anyway, Venus is also going to trine Neptune, which I really, really like. This is real sexy, to be honest. Moon, Scorpio, trining Venus in Cancer, trining Neptune. Really good for feeling good. Venus in Cancer, trining Neptune is really good for nostalgia. Seeing things a little bit better than what they are. Neptune can be deceptive. Neptune can... I truly think Neptune and Pisces has really been the age of social media since Neptune, ingress into Pisces, and boom, all the social media popped off. And of course on social media, things just look so much better than they really are. I think Venus trining Neptune is definitely going to give us this romanticized feeling of like, I don't want to say our needs being met, but like wanting to be taken care of, wanting to take care of. Like Venus in Cancer is literally like, I want comfort, creature comfort. I want, intimacy. I want that connection, right? And Venus trining Neptune with the moon in Scorpio is like really seeking that out. Maybe thinking that connection is better than it is, maybe thinking that connection's deeper than it is, but I do think that the emotions are nice on Monday. Sure, the moon's in Scorpio and Jupiter just stationed retrograde, but I think this is, I guess on Monday when the moon's in Scorpio trining Venus, it's like this kind of gives us that meaning, that depth of like, okay, now that we're feeling this, what does that mean for you now that you have felt this way, now that you do feel this way? So yeah, loving Monday. We get to Tuesday, and on Tuesday the moon's going to enter Sagittarius. It's going to make a trine to Mars. Hit the south node the whole time and pretty much make a square. It'll enter Sagittarius, square Jupiter, then trine Mars, hit the south node. This is also in combination of Mercury stationing direct on Tuesday. So hold on, I got to get my little. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. There we go. Mercury stationing direct. This has been a very long Mercury retrograde, I feel like. But I feel like I also say that with every Mercury retrograde, so, take that as you will. But Mercury stationing direct, what situations and things that you didn't see before have now come to your attention, right? There's been something that's been on your mind, Mercury stationed retrograde on Venus, where maybe you had an idea, maybe you thought you were attracted to something, or maybe you thought something would work and then it didn't. And now Mercury stationing direct, and I don't want to say, oh, it didn't, like nothing worked out, but it worked out differently than you expected. And now that Mercury stationing direct, what have you reviewed and really gone over these past few weeks? And now that you've kind of got your head clear about that, now it's time to move forward. But as we get into Tuesday, the moon enters Sag and makes this square to Jupiter, our hopes and our wishes can only get us so far. Our vision and our creativity can really only get us, we could all hope for peace and love across the world, but it ain't going to happen unless we actually, do something about it, right? I think as the moon goes into Sagittarius and makes a square to Jupiter, there's the sense of, just because, you can have a vision, it can be all worked up in your head, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be able to come out that way, look that way. And I think on Tuesday with the moon squaring Jupiter, at first there's this, like, the moon's going to go into Sagittarius. There's like this initial freedom almost, like the moon in Sag is very reflective, very, almost escape like wanting to escape. And the moon's going to square Jupiter where, you can run, but you can't hide. You can't, what are you actually avoiding? Like the moon in Sag is like, I'll just avoid things. But the moon squaring Jupiter is like, we know you can only avoid things for so long. And the moon's coming up to this conjunction with the South Node. On Tuesday, there's an inevitable like change, a release, right? We're coming up towards the full moon in Cancer. I mean, the full moon in Capricorn that we have this week. Fuck, I forgot about that. But on Tuesday, after the moon squares Jupiter, it makes this trine to Mars. It's kind of like, we gotta have the courage to go. Something I've been really thinking about with Mars and Leo, and I talked about this last week, of, letting your nuts hang, letting it all hang out. That's great. Something I've been really thinking about with Mars and Leo, though, opposite Saturn, is like knowing your audience and knowing, who is seeing what and why. You know what I mean? Certain things in the political world, there are certain things that are done simply for optics, right? And then there are certain things that are done that don't necessarily get all of the attention, but are actually like those power moves, right? I really think with, as we're kind of building up to the Mars-Saturn opposition, really be really clear on what side that you have to be on. Do you have to, I don't want to say make a performance for the optics. I think you will react that way. I think there's a lot of possibility for reaction, but this is much more of like, where do you need to stand up and shine, and where does your like pride not need to be called into action? Every time a hyena attacks a lion, the lion doesn't always respond. It only responds when it absolutely needs to, right? Take some of that advice. I just think that as the moon's trining Mars, as the moon goes into Sagittarius, conjoining the South Node, trining Mars and Leo, this is going to be like, okay, here we go. If this is my vision, if this is my plan, if this is what I see coming up, what does that mean for me? What does that mean I have to do? But it's the moon in Sag shining Mars and Leo. There's an excitement to do it maybe, or actually, I don't want to say excitement. It's the moon on the South Node. There's this kind of like, you got to do what you got to do type thing. And Mars and Leo's like, you know what? Fuck it. I guess I do. Then we get into Wednesday. And so now that Mercury's direct, I just think that really changes the game. Mostly with Mercury now direct, it's having that ability to get the things, we don't have everything worked out, right? But now we at least have a clear road ahead of us. It's like when you, if in the Rockies, when I was DJing, not really when I was DJing weddings, I never really got caught in a blizzard now that I think of it. But there was a few times where, if you drive out in the Midwest or whatever and it's really snowy or there's an accident or the road's closed or whatever, you don't really know when it's going to open up. But the moment it opens up, that you're going forward. You don't have the details cleared of when you're going to get home, but at least now you're moving forward. That's the Mercury stationing direct. You have to remember, Mercury still has a square to Neptune, right? It's not done with that. I think that's like really the only thing that's it. But it still has that square to Neptune, right? We don't have the kinks worked out, and don't think you see everything clearly right now. Just because the Mercury's retrograde's over does not mean everything's easy peasy. I think the dramatization of things like kind of being revealed is over. But when Mercury comes back to square Neptune again, that's another, like I keep seeing the meme of like the soy jack people pointing. It's like, I don't know if you guys ever seen the meme of like people in the desert and it's like, oh my gosh, look, there's water, but it's like the mirage or whatever. That's kind of like this Mercury stationing direct square Neptune. It's like, you might think that you're in the desert and that there's a oasis waiting for you, but it is simply a mirage. Don't get your hopes up. But we get into Wednesday. The sun's going to trine Jupiter. I love this. Jupiter is retrograde. The sun is in Jupiter's exaltation. Jupiter rules the trine aspect too. In the theme of Monday, if you guys aren't familiar with the traditional stuff, like the trine is ruled by Jupiter because Jupiter stations retrograde and direct when it trines the sun. So I really like the sun Jupiter trine days because as Jupiter is now stationing retrograde, this is what I'm repetitive about, is it's really that test of faith, right? Jupiter's in Pisces. here's our little juice kick. Here's our little mush of what 2022 has to offer. As Jupiter goes retrograde, if it's kind of like, here's me having a Christian upbringing. But it's kind of like with like a lot of the stuff like Jesus talks about, he's kind of like, yeah, well, straight up, like, well, I can't even name all of this shit all the shenanigans Jesus gets into in the Bible, but he's just always like, I just trust God, and that's just what's going to happen. And what's funny is there's always that time in that test of faith where it's like, oh my God, like when he's walking on water or, whatever. That Jupiter retrograde moment, this sunshine Jupiter is like, can you trust? Can you have faith? And, I think with faith, right? It's a learning experience. It's a surrendering experience. And so when we talk about the sun in Cancer and Jupiter in Pisces, I mean, you guys are talking I'm a Leo, so when I don't even like mentioning the word surrendering. But the sun trine Jupiter here is there's an openness. This is a safe spot. The only thing, the reason I also say that too is on Wednesday, we have the sun trine Jupiter, right? The moon's going to square Neptune, which in one sense, the moon squaring Neptune is just, it's like you have a big plan in your head and then some little thing you forgot to think about, makes you scrap it and you start over again. Like the moon squaring Neptune is like, don't try not to get wrapped up in your head on Wednesday. Like it's going to be a very emotional day. Truly emotional day for a lot of people. I just think the moon square Neptune, it's pretty much void, right? Like the moon's pretty much void. It's not actually, squaring Neptune, but if Neptune wasn't there, which it's not, because Neptune's not real. But the moon's void, it's not doing anything, right? But with that square to Neptune, there's this sense of like trying to see something that isn't there, trying to, run away when you can't, trying to escape when there really isn't. And it's not that you can't, you could always run away with stuff, but this is one of those things. It's like that saying, it's like you can run from the cops, but you can't run from the radio. That's kind of like this moon square Neptune thing. You can only go so far. So I think and this is also good for like, imagining things, making up stories and getting really lost in your head. So I would really just advise to get the fuck out of your head on Wednesday. And then why I also say this is a safe space is because there's Venus opposite Pluto also on Wednesday. And, it's not the craziest aspect, but what is crazy is Venus stations retrograde on Pluto this winter. So we're halfway to the Venus retrograde, or I don't want to say halfway. Well, pretty much we're halfway. We still have a little while, but with Venus going opposite Pluto, you have to remember Pluto, like again, I brought up this analogy with the Mars opposite Pluto. It was like, doomsday prepper energy. This is the same thing, but I think with Venus opposite Pluto, there's this like, I value like really understanding your values, I think is a really good way to put it. And I think Venus in Cancer opposite Pluto is like, I'm sure some of you could relate to this, where when I was like really, really poor and I sold a bunch of shit I shouldn't have to like, pay bills or whatever, there's certain things that you're like, I remember, and this is just of course my own anecdote, but there was things that like I got rid of that I was like, wow, I really wish I didn't get rid of that. I've had stuff stolen from me that totally shouldn't have been stolen from me, right? And then there's other moments where I've been like, I've had those opportunities, and maybe that's me being cheap. I don't know, not everyone's going to have that experience. But I look at this Venus opposite Pluto as like really being clear about what's important to you. And doing that through this fear, right? I brought up that story for me because for me, I was like, I got to fucking pay my bills. Like, I don't want to be homeless and I want to eat. And so like Venus opposite Pluto here is literally like, understanding what's worth what. In like the face of like some serious shit. And so I think the sunshine Jupiter is like, you got to surrender. I don't want to say you got to let your guard down, your arms down. You got to know who to trust though, right? You got to know who's your enemy and who's your friend. And I think Mars coming up to being opposite Saturn, we're going to like, this is not a time to, trust and be friends with everyone, but know who's on your side and know what matters. Know who you care about. You know what I mean? And Venus is opposite Pluto. What actually matters to you? You know, what do you actually care about? What is of necessity that you're actually that you have enough worth and value over that you'll do something about, right? And I think as the sun's trine Jupiter, you have to kind of like surrender into the idea of trusting, having a little bit of faith, having a little bit of awareness too. I think is a really critical one. But then we get into Thursday, and on Thursday we have the full moon. The moon enters Capricorn, and we pretty much just get the full moon in Capricorn going. Where I tweeted this earlier, of this full moon's really just gonna be like time to get your shit together. If you look over at Mercury, it's been 3 days since Mercury stationed direct, and it hasn't moved a muscle. So again, and this is the one thing too that I wanted to bring up. I've seen a lot of people bring up similar things with Mercury, but I haven't seen anyone bring up this yet, and I've been kind of thinking about this. Mercury is hanging out on the North Node and being motionless. That's like getting the news that you just won $1 billion lottery and you're not allowed to tell anyone, or you just got the biggest secret in the world and you just like, and you're allowed to tell people. Let's say you got the biggest secret in the world, you're allowed to tell people, but you are in the middle of the desert without a phone. You're just like, it is not happening right now. Like, as much as you want to get that message out, as much as you want to tell the world what's going on, Mercury ain't moving that fast. You know, you did not Amazon this overnight. It is U.S. Postal Service. It's going to get there when it gets there, and we're all going to be happy when it does. But as Mercury stationing direct, not a lot's moving forward. Don't get, our ideas be going our minds be going a million miles an hour, and we can feel like nothing's actually gaining traction. That's just how it is. But with the full moon in Capricorn, this is the moon, right? The moon lights up the dark. The moon lights up what we don't always see. Now the sun's in Cancer, and Cancer's about, ruled by the moon. So in one aspect, you could say, oh, Cancer season, the sun's going through Cancer. This is lighting up our emotions. This is the moon in Capricorn. This is the moon in detriment. This is the moon not in its favorite place to be. So this is uncomfortable. But for one, I would say it's more uncomfortable, but we've had Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter all through Capricorn. This is nothing really. I think this full moon in Capricorn is much more of like, get your shit together. The moon's going to be sextiling Jupiter. The sun's going to be trining Jupiter. This really is like, what plan do you need to get across? What do you need? Like, the moon in Capricorn is like, when you have to start over in life, or when you face a big realization. Like, I remember, like, I hate to, like, when you have to face the music, right? There's a certain level of emotional maturity you have to have in order to kind of really face your consequences. And I really look at this full moon in Capricorn as like, I look at the moon in Capricorn as like, yeah, it's in detriment. The moon can't be, when you're a kid and you get in trouble for doing something dumb, you want to cry and play the victim because you're a kid. You don't want to get in trouble, right? But then you also understand that you're the one who did it and it's your problem, so you get the consequences. So you kind of have to like suck it up and mature a little bit. And that's kind of this full moon in Capricorn. And it's sextiling Jupiter, though. It's like, this isn't comfortable, this isn't fun. It's the full moon in Capricorn, right? But what needs to get done, right? Like, I think one thing too is the full moon in Capricorn being ruled by Saturn, and like Saturn squaring Uranus with the Mars thing. This is going to be kind of a little bit more complicated than just that. Like, oh, what needs to get done? I think also this just being ruled by Saturn, and Saturn in Aquarius is like, what structures do and don't work for you. Like, this is like kind of looking under the hood of our Saturn and Aquarius, like, I don't want to say ideologies, but our line of thinking. And the moon in Capricorn is going to show us what works and what doesn't. So I think on Thursday, I think the biggest thing is, realize what you need to get a hold of. Check the oil. Check your oil. Check under the hood. Make sure it's all good. And I think on Thursday too, it's really just kind of a look at like, all right, what needs to get done now that Mercury's stationing direct? What's the plan, Stan? We move over to Friday, and on Friday, the moon's going to conjoin Venus, or my bad, go opposite Venus and conjoin Pluto pretty much the whole day. you know, as the moon's decreasing, heading towards Venus, this is like, it feels good to take care of things. Like, I hate to make this is such a dramatic analogy. But it's kind of like, it's kind of like, it's like getting help. It literally is like getting fucking help. Which a lot of you need. Just kidding. But this full moon in Capricorn coming up to Venus and Venus in Cancer is like, I don't know about you guys, but every time, I remember when I was like really suicidal, it was when I attempted suicide, I called my buddy. I didn't even tell him what was wrong with me. I was just like, hey man, I'm sick. Can you like take me to the hospital? Because I didn't have a car at the time. And he didn't even fucking question. And I thank God for this dude, right? Like, shout out to Shane, never questioned why or whatever. I was just like, dude, I'm sick. Can you take me to the hospital? He's like, sure, no problem. Had a great chat. But for me to ask help, that was I mean, the moon in Capricorn coming up to Venus, there's this sense of like insecurity with like, hey, I need this and I don't have it. And you have what I want. And I'm very afraid to confront that. That's the moon conjoining Pluto going opposite Venus in Cancer. And Venus in Cancer is like, I'll give you what you want. I don't know why you're so fucking timid. Like, you're kind of chipping me out. So like on Friday, like the big thing is like, with the moon on top of Pluto, like relax a little bit. You don't have to, like with my buddy who helped me, right? Like, I didn't have to spring all my problems onto him and be like, man, I fucking almost killed myself and all this blah, blah, blah. Like, all I had to do is just like, hey, can you give me a ride to the hospital? Like that scene in Hot Rod. I quote Hot Rod all the time. I am literally that dude in Hot Rod who air drums and does the acid and gets the thing in his eye. Like, that's literally my spirit animal. There's even a quote in Hot Rod where he's like, I can't even remember what it is, but anyway, ask for help, receive that help. Don't be afraid of it. It's fine. And I think then as we go into Saturday, on Saturday, the moon's going to go into Aquarius, right? And it's going to go first opposite Mars. And then it's going, pretty much, yeah, it'll go opposite Mars, and then throughout the night start to conjoin Saturn, square Uranus. And then Venus enters Leo also on Saturday. So on Saturday, I don't like this, but I also don't know how I feel about it. Only because I got also stuff going on this day too. I got a trip that I'm doing, so I'm like, what's this gonna be? But the moon going into Aquarius after that full moon, right? Heading up towards an opposition with Mars and Leo. I think this is really, the moon conjoining Saturn is like, sometimes it's better to be silent than to like stand out. Like, when cops come to a party, like you don't just hang out in the middle of the room, like you get out of there. Sometimes blending into the crowd and sometimes anonymity is actually helpful. I think the moon conjoining Saturn and squaring Uranus is like, you don't be the person that stands out. Sometimes standing out helps. Sometimes blending with the crowd does too. But I think as the moon's conjoining Saturn and going opposite Mars and Leo, this is a real tug of emotions, being like, I want to do this. Like Mars and Leo's like, our pride wants to go this way. Venus is going to enter Leo too. We're really going to take center stage here. But I think as the moon is in Aquarius conjoining Saturn, this is maybe not feeling like it's the right time, not feeling like you can do it. The moon on top of Saturn is definitely being much more, withdrawn, literally like hiding away, almost being a little bit more alienated. And I think on Saturday is like Venus goes into Leo. For one, Venus going into Leo is going to feel so good because we're just going to be like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, this is who I need to be. I need to be seen. I need love. I need attention. And we're going to get it one way or another, right? That's Venus and Leo. But I think as the moon just on Saturdays in Aquarius, there's this sense of like maybe feeling like we're not getting seen enough. Maybe feeling like we're not getting enough attention, right? Maybe feeling really like angsty and angry against, who we're seen with and who we're seen without. And so, again, and I've talked a lot, if you're one of my clients who's got Leo and Aquarius placements, I've talked to you about this, about the whole being seen and being witnessed in different ways this year. And you got to know, now that we've got this Mars and Venus stuff happening in Aquarius, we're getting the new moon and full moon in Aquarius and Leo, we're going to be starting to get seen. And I'm not looking forward to it because like I almost tweeted like I think I got somewhat little bit canceled when the eclipse happened on my Venus, but I think something else will happen when Mars goes opposite Saturn on my Mercury. But I want to watch what I say. I want to watch what I do. Make sure 'cause I'm sure it's gonna hit me somewhere. But I also kind of look at this in the sense of like we're gonna want to be seen. We're gonna be seen in ways that we don't always want to be seen in. So if you're gonna be seen, you might as well be seen authentically, right? You might as well be as real as shit. You might as well be as real as possible. Like, what's the dude? I'm sure one of you nerds would know this. There was like a guy who right before, I think it was a king, like a king of France or something like that, or king of Britain or something like that. Like right before he got beheaded, like his last words were like, "Oh, you had 3 spelling errors on like his, death decree or something like that." And it's just like, that's keeping it real to the end. It really is. Because he was going to die in either way. So I look at this type of stuff and it's like, you're going to be seen. Not every audience is going to be for you, and not everyone's going to see you in the way that you want to be seen. So again, you might as well just try to be as authentic as possible, in my opinion, unless you have better advice. I really don't know what else to say besides that. I think as you go into Sunday though, and we pretty much get into next week, Moon's going to be pretty much separating from Saturn and Uranus, and pretty much void for the whole day. So when you look at Sunday, kind of coming off from that Moon, Saturn, Mars opposition, I think there's going to be some type of, intensity, not conflict, not yet, because that's the Mars, Saturn opposition. That's when you'll see the conflict ramp up. Much more, you're going to see the heat. You're going to see the tension really build up with the Moon Saturn thing. And I think with the Moon in Aquarius too, you might feel more distant, more outcasted, more isolated, more not seen. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's going to feel you to be even want to be more seen, right? So, it really, of course, just depends on who you are and what chart you have as how this is going to affect you. But that's pretty much this week. Next week, I wanted to say it in this video because I feel like it might be too late when it comes to next week. I might be wrong on this. I just wanted to throw it out there in case I was right. So I don't know if you guys have... So this Mars-Saturn opposition. Next week, let me just say next week. Next week we have Mars going opposite Saturn, Mars squaring Uranus. That's pretty much it. Literally, that's it. Yeah, I want to double check if that was anything else. Nope, that's it. This Mars-Saturn opposition with Mars squaring Uranus, some of my personal predictions, I think we're going to have some type of, I almost tweeted about this, but the last time we had a Mars-Saturn opposition in Leo and Aquarius was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, the North Node was on Mars and the South Node was on Saturn, or I might have that mixed up. So that really emphasizes, Mars, Saturn is definitely like clashes of power, right? But the nodes being on Mars and Saturn during that time would emphasize the crisis energy. Also, in the Cuban Missile Crisis of the Mars-Saturn opposition, it was square Neptune and Scorpio, which, if you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was this level of like paranoia and fear, and like we didn't know if they had missiles or if they didn't, and we didn't even know that they were there for the longest time, and then it came up and it was this big thing, right? I truly think that we're going to have another situation, not a Cuban Missile Crisis. This is a little bit different, but the Mars-Saturn opposition is like squaring Uranus. I wouldn't be surprised if America, it's not like that's anything new for us to just drone or shoot missiles at people, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw literally early next week some type of critical, destabilizing military situation. That was the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. We also had a Mars-Saturn, we had a Mars-Saturn opposition in Aquarius and Leo in 1991. But that one, the one with 1991 was with Mars. So Mars was with Jupiter and Venus. So that made it really, really good. The only thing that happened was like there was a space shuttle launch and that was it. But there was 2 years later, in June of 1993, there was another Mars-Saturn opposition. However, it was just when Saturn had ingressed into Pisces and when Mars had ingressed into Virgo. Now, it's interesting, if you look at the chart of 1962, Jupiter was also at 2 degrees Pisces during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So that's the other reason why I say that we might have a really similar situation. But In 1993, right as Mars entered Virgo and hit that opposition to Saturn, Bill Clinton did a missile strike somewhere. I forgot. I was literally just looking this up. I forgot where. And so I think you might see kind of like a military thing really pop off, and that kind of might describe more of the story for you. But I just wanted to say that. But next week we get the Mars Saturn opposition. We get the Mars square Uranus thing. Personally, for you guys, that's really the breakthrough stuff that you are looking for. Well, I don't even want to say that you're looking for. A lot of you probably aren't even looking for it. But the breakthrough, destabilizing energy you guys and your anxiety might be anticipating, that's coming next week. So with that being said, I'll leave you guys off with that. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.